Hazayda could get Leishtay. We're in Maseches Gittin in the Bavli, Daf Ayin Zayin number 77a, by the Mishna. Hazayda get Leishtay v'hi b'seich beisa. Somebody throws a get for his wife, and she's inside of her house. And she's inside her chotzer or inside of her courtyard. She's considered megureshes. Her chotzer is koine. We learn from Yad, the pasuk says Yada, even though it doesn't have to. Obviously, you're putting it in her hand to teach you that her chotzer is considered like her Yad. And if you throw the get into the chotzer, she's considered megureshes. If they threw it into his house or his chotzer, even if he's with her in the bed, she's not megureshes. I think I have to find a different location actually because of the noise. If we're from this year, I'm saying I'm sitting in a place with other people and there's noise. If he threw it into her cheka in her lap, in her lap, or inside of her basket, she's considered megureshes. Rashi says it's like a basket that women put needles inside of.
Oh, cheka.
Okay. Let me get it straightened out. Sorry, just had to switch. Okay, the Gemara asks like this: "We know from where do we know this? How do we know that her chotzer is considered that he could put it in her chotzer and that will make her megureshes?" The Tanur Rabbanan was taught in the Brayso. V'nosan biyoda. It says he should give it the get. He should give the document of divorce to her hand. I only know her hand. How do I know her rooftop, her chotzer, or different types of courtyards? How do we know this? V'nosan. Because it says v'nosan. It doesn't say uveyoda. Full pasuk is when a husband takes a wife and he's with her, if he doesn't find favor, she doesn't find favor in his eyes. He found in her something which is not moral. He should give her a document of separation. He puts it in her hands, and he sends her from his house. So it could have just said. It could have just said because of la sefer krisus biyoda in her hand. Why does it say v'nosan? V'nosan means v'komoka. Tani nami hochi gabi ganef. We learn the same thing when it comes to ganef. Yodi and li yodi. I only know his hand. If you find, it says in the pasuk like this: if you find in his hand the ox or the donkey alive, you pay double, and if it was a vuach, if it was sold or slaughtered, then you have to pay 4 or 5 times, right? Depending on an ox or a sheep. So how do we know that you have to pay? The Gadif is going to have to pay, even if it's not in his hands. It's from the simple reading of the pasuk. It's only if he's caught red-handed, he's literally holding it. How do we know that even if he's not holding it, if it's in his property? It says himotzi timotzi mikomokim. In any situation, he has to pay. It's we need the pasuk to tell us both by Ganif and also by a woman who's receiving her get. Diash meaning get, because she's divorced against her will. When he gives it to her in her hands, it's Bal Karcha. So therefore it makes sense to say her chotzer is also acquiring it for her because it's against her will. There's no such thing as stealing against your will. Person puts it in his hands against his will, he's not going to be chayiv. Maybe not. Maybe only if it's mamish in his hands. The ganav is a knas. Really, if you would think about it, if a person steals, you pay back what you paid. Torah gave a special fine that you have to pay double. So just like Torah said, a special fine to make him pay double, they're also going to make a fine, even if it's in the courtyard. You might think not by get. Tzricha. That's what we need in all cases, in both by ganif and by get, to teach you that it's all that the chotzer is koine. That the chotzer is koine, that the courtyard of the ganif or the wife, it acquires to make him pay back what he had lost, what he had stolen, and by the wife to receive the get. The Gemara asks a question now. We said chatzera, so we're going to analyze this word, the word of chatzera. Chatzera, the Gemara asks, Masha konse isha kona bailo. What the wife acquires, the husband acquires. So how could it be that her chotzer is koine her get for her? How could it acquire her get for her? It should be considered nichse malug. It should be the property that she's brought into the marriage. So what happens is the husband has the use, the benefit. Nichse malug, he's allowed to use paytas. So how could she be able to have her own? How could acquire it purely for her if the use is sort of, so to speak, leased to the husband? How is it considered hers? That's the question. Gemara answers. He wrote to her that I don't have any ownership, any claims over your property. He wrote it to her now. After he had married her, he wrote it to her. And therefore, her chotzer is able to be koine her get for her. So the Gemara asks, even how's that even going to help? Even if he wrote such a thing, how's it going to help? Tiny the Chayr says in the Brayso, mainly I'll sell the zoo. Someone who said to his friend, I don't have any claims on this field and I don't have any business in it, my hands are removed from it. He doesn't say anything. Rashi says, let's say there was a partnership and he wrote, in other words, if he wants to mamish give it, he has to write matana. He has to write a gift. He has to say it's a gift. Because of they said he didn't write it after he got it. You're right. If he wrote it after he got it, he would have to do a kinyan. He would have to write that it's a gift to her. He wrote this before he was zoicha. So because he wrote it before he acquired the field, he can make it tonight. He can make a condition to say that it's not mine. Let's say you have a nachla that's coming from you from another place. In other words, it's not from your father. If it's from your father, you can't make it tonight because it's a Yerusha from Torah. But if it's coming from another place, you can make a tanai, you can make a condition that you don't want it. Ukedirova. Like Rava says. The Omar Rava said, Oimer. Yefshi b'takanat chachamim kegoin zu shaymin. We're on the next page on Dafayin Zayin Amud Beis 77b. Person says, I don't want the takan of the chacham. Such a case, we listen to him. So the Gemara right away asks, "My kegoin zu, what's the example? Could Ravuna Marav? Tom Ravuna Marav. Ravuna said the name Marav. Yichayli isha shetay v'labayla ini nizoyin. It's v'eni yoyse. Basically, she's chayav to work for him in order for him to feed her. And it's at the kanas chachamim. And sometimes her work is not going to be sufficient for her food. So therefore, she's able to say, I don't want this takana. I'd rather support myself, and I don't want to be fed by my husband. I'll take care of my own mazoinus. Basically like this. True that the husband has a chiyuv, has an obligation min haTorah to feed her. She'er ksus v'yoino. She'er is food. Oino is marital relations, ksus is garments. However, Because of Avo, they said the husband's going to get upset if it's a one-way street. He's feeding her and she gets to work and keep her own food. So they were misakin. They instituted that her work will go to her husband. But if she says, I don't need your takana because I could feed myself, it's fine. Okay. So that is the first answer. The first answer is the husband, but when he was still engaged to her, said, I don't have anything to do with you. With the field. I don't want to have any benefit from the field. You can keep the field. So he made it tonight before he got married. So therefore her chotzer is able to be kind for her. Rava has another answer. Nova Omar Atu Yoda Mile Kanya Lebal. What about her hands? Her hands are also a problem because Maisi there belong to the husband. Elamai, what are you going to say? How is she able to receive her get in her hand? The get and her hand come together. In other words, the moment he gives her the get, she no longer belongs to him. She's separated from him. So therefore her get, she's able to receive her get simultaneously. It's true that before she gets her get, the chotzer, it belongs to the husband for paytis, for the usage. But the moment it goes into the chotzer, simultaneously their connection is severed. It reverts back to her ownership. So at that moment, it receives the get simultaneously.
David, they're living together at this point? I can't wrap my head around what
they're living together, and the husband has certain rights. The husband has certain rights for usage of the chotzer. The husband has the rights over the usage of the chotzer until they get divorced. So the question is, how could her chotzer receive the get for her if the rights belong to the husband? And the answer is simultaneously. Yeah. What?
And he made. I thought he lives there. He lives there with her, and then he decides to divorce her. So wouldn't that be partly his chotzer?
Yeah, that's the question of the Gemara. It's partly his chotzer. Even if it belonged to her before the marriage, he has rights over the usage of the chotzer. That's the whole question of the Gemara. That's the question. So the Gemara answers because at the moment of the divorce, at that same time she receives it. At the moment of the divorce, he doesn't have rights over the chotzer, and therefore she's able to receive it. It happens together. Same thing with her receiving it with her hand. Okay, so Omer le Ravino, the Ravashi. Ravina told Ravashi, Rava yad the ishaka kashale. Rava's question was from the hand. It was medayik. How does a woman's hand receive the get? Gita v'yoda boinkecha. They came at the same time. Nihida koni leila ma'isi yadeh yoda gufa mikoni lei. It's true that the hand is acquired the ma'isi yodeh, so that her work goes to her husband. The hand itself doesn't belong to the husband. So therefore, you can't compare. With her hand, it does belong to her, and she's able to receive things with her hands. Her chotzer, however, is different. Can't compare it to yad. Yad belongs to her. Okay, ma'isi yodeh, if she works, it goes to her husband. But this is different. This is receiving a get. There's no problem with receiving a get with her hand. Chotzer is the problem. The usage of the chotzer belongs to the husband. So again, Omer le Ravina Ravashi Rovo Yad Yisha Kakashale Nihida Kani le Lamaisi Yadeo Yod the Gufa Mikoni le. Omer le Rovo Yad Eved Kakashale. His question wasn't from the hand of the wife. It's true, the hand of the wife. It makes sense that she could receive her get. He was talking about the hand of a slave. Let's say you have a slave who's being freed. How is he able to be makabel get shikhr? How is he able to receive the document of freedom? He doesn't have his own yad. Yad Eved ki Yad Rabbi. So Ravashi answered, his question was from the Yad Eved, the hand of the Eved. Command over Bishtar Hayidei Atzmoi Yad Eved. The man over Bishtar Hayidei Atzmoi, according to the opinion that says that the servant himself is able to receive this star, the document that he's being freed. Yad Eved Yad Rabbi Damya. How is he able to say that? Seemingly the hand of the slave is like the hand of the master. So how is he able to receive it? Rather, what are we going to say that it happens at the same time? The same time that he receives, he's already freed, so he's able to receive it. It's like a loop. So too with the chotzer. The get and the chotzer, same thing. We're going to say the same idea. I guess there's a machlokes in Maseches Kedushin daf chaf beis. Can the Yeved receive for himself? So according to the opinion that he can, how is it possible? Through Gittin v'yoda boin kechad. So to chatzeira v'yoda boin kechad. Bois keachas. Bois keachad. Gittin v'chatzeira boin kechad. Okay. I guess Aramaic is a little different. We have a story. We're in Maseches Gittin daf zayin with base about 10 lines on the top. Ahu shchiv mira. There was a shchiv mira, someone who was on his deathbed. He was very ill because of Lagita the Lidvisu Bahade Panya the Malishabsa. He wrote a get for his wife, Erev Shabbos, Mamash Erev Shabbos. He didn't have a chance to give it to her. I think he wanted to spare her from Yibum Chalitza, like we've already mentioned. And he didn't manage to give it to her.
What did you just say?
I think he wanted to spare her from Yibum and Chalitza, but because it was right before Shabbos, he couldn't give it to her. It was right before Shabbos, he couldn't give it to her. So Tokef Le'alma, all of a sudden on Shabbos, he was feeling very ill, and he really wanted to give the get to his wife. The problem is, a get is considered muksa.
A get's considered what?
Muksa. You're not allowed to be metaltal a get on Shabbos.
Okay.
It's an interesting concept. So they asked Rava what to do. Also, the command Rava, they told Rava he really wants to divorce his wife. And the problem is you're not allowed to move the get. So is he allowed to give it to her on Shabbos? You're not supposed to do a get on Shabbos. Amr lahu zilu amri lei likni nielo lahu duchta the yasiv lei the yasiv begito. All he has to do is give her the area where the get is on. Give it to her as a gift. How is she going to acquire the karka through chazaka? He gives her the room. It says she has to go and close the door and open the door. So that's going to be enough to be koine. And that will be her chazaka to acquire the room, and then automatically she'll also acquire her get. It's not. It says in the Mishna, Noal geder. If you close the fence, Parat Kolshur, you opened it. I did chazaka. This is considered chazaka. So therefore, she'll be able to. This is the best way to do it.
Is this on Shabbat?
On Shabbos.
She opens and closes the door, but how can she acquire something? I thought kinyan is not allowed on the Sabbath.
Oh, very good. Not supposed to do Mekach HaMemker, but you can do a matana. You can give a gift. You give somebody a gift. So Rashi says, there's a Tosfos. Rashi says, a get, you're not allowed to be metaltal. It's muksa.
Yes.
Now, in the Tosefta, it says you should not divorce people on Shabbos. Halal, you're not supposed to divorce. So how do they even get around that? Right? His answer was to make her a chutzner. Make the chutzner. Give her the room where she was in. Give it as a chutzner. Tosfos asked, it says in Tosefta, you're not allowed to divorce on Shabbos. The answer is because he's a shchiv mira, they were lenient. We're afraid about yibum, so on and so forth.
Yeah, he knows he may die on that day, right? So
yeah. Okay, so now we have a question. How could you say that you're able to do this? He can't give her a gift. Whatever she acquires, he acquires. So it still belongs to him. Ichsif. Rava was embarrassed. The great Rava. That's amazing. That one of the greatest poskim of all time. The Soif Higli Milsa da Rusa have it. In the end, they found out she was just betrothed, and unfortunately, her fiance was extremely ill. So therefore, even if you're going to say Benisua, that the husband will acquire all of her possessions, who says the same thing will apply by a Rusa, by a fiance, by a betrothed? Yeah. In the end, in the end, ultimately, Rav has said it doesn't matter. You could be lenient no matter what. Saivi, no matter what. It's fine. Even if the husband acquires it. Fact is, at the moment she receives the get, it belongs to her. The chutzner was going to purely belong to her in order to receive the get. It happens simultaneously. What do you mean? Rav already said this a long time ago. So why was he embarrassed? No, when he said it was because of this story that he said it. It's because of the story that he said to defend his halachic ruling. You found the reasoning for his ruling. So there's a lot of siyata d'shmaya for the tzaddikim, for the great tzaddikim, that even if in the beginning they don't know, they don't have a yesod for their psak, like they got embarrassed, ultimately found the reason. Heavenly help. We're up to the 2 dots now.
So I guess he got the shaliach to deliver it to her because he's too ill to deliver it himself.
No,
right?
he didn't deliver it. He gave her the room where the get was in, and she just has to open and close the door of that room, and automatically she owns the room, and therefore the get is in her chutzner. Because the get is in her chutzner, she's able to be divorced. Even though it's like her chutzner that is acquired afterwards. Okay, the Hibasich basically she has to be in the house. She has to be there at that time. She has to be on the side of the house, the side of her chutzner. Even if she's in Tveria and her chutzner is all the way in Tzipaydi and vice versa, so right away we ask, and this is really a question on both of them, but it says in the Mishnah, she has to be in the house. Because the chutzner is mishnameres, the hoarder has to be able, basically she has to be able to watch it. Basically, the difference would be if they gave it to her servant, it's not, and while he was sleeping and then he woke up, that doesn't count. It has to be no, while he was awake, it doesn't count. Sorry, if you give it to a servant while he was awake, it doesn't count because he has his own das. The chutzner, however, is al pi daito mishtameres. That's fine. So we have that machlekes. We're up to Ahu Gavro. The father's coming in, so I think we'll wait a second.
Hi, David. I'm here. Where are you? Sorry, I was late at work.
12 lines from the bottom. By the way, is 10 o'clock better for you? Or 9? It doesn't matter.
10 o'clock is better, but I can manage 15 to 10. It's just, it was weird last night.
No, because whatever. I'm saying now that I'm out of the summer season, I theoretically could go back to 10 o'clock if it's good for all you guys.
Whatever the other guys say.
I'm easy.
What?
I'm easy personally.
Oh, you're easy. It doesn't matter. Baruch, David, are you guys okay to switch it back to 10 so it'll be easier for my father?
Sure.
One more thing, David.
What are you asking? Say
to switch the time back to 10. We're out of the summer season.
So what are you asking, David?
Is it okay if we switch the time back to 10 o'clock? Because it'll be easier for my father.
Oh, switch the time to 10. That's fine with me.
Also, I thought about what you I thought about what you said. And I think it would be better for me to join on the phone. And if you give me the number now, I'll remember it.
Oh wow. Okay. Let me 1 second. Let me let's see if I could figure out how to do this. More. This is the invite link. No, I think I have to go back.
Oh, write it down.
Oh, here it is. Invite. Copy to clipboard. Put down. Us.
This is a phone number to
Chicago.
call.
This is a Chicago number, and you're gonna need. Oh, we're gonna need a lot of numbers. How does it work even? Oh, I think you need the meeting ID, the passcode, and the number.
Wait, but I thought that if I just call on the phone, I can avoid the passcode.
The passcode is 770. The number, no, I'm not sure. I think you still need the meeting ID. You have to enter the meeting ID, basically.
On the phone?
Probably. You just dial it in.
Okay.
Okay, so the phone, do you want all these numbers now?
Yeah, David has his phone. He can, in case I forget something, he can type it down.
Oh, so I'll just send him the whole thing. I'll send it to him on WhatsApp.
Send it to me? Okay.
Okay.
And let me know if you could figure it out. Basically, it's on the bottom of the message. It has all the numbers. There's a number for Chicago, 312-626-627.
Now.
Wait, so 312?
I'll write it to him separately. 626.
Oh, there's one for Chicago. That's great.
Yeah.
Might
Oh,
be
you
a
see it.
local.
And then you type in the meeting ID, which is 815.
There's a 312 number for Chicago, right? Area 312.
Yeah, exactly. Number. What's the number? Meeting ID is 815.
So after the class, we can write it down.
It's okay. We'll see each other later in the week. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on. How's
I'll
that?
wait till after the class anyway.
Oh, here we go. I wrote everything. Okay, passcode is 770. I wrote everything separately on the bottom of the message. I sent him the whole big message, and then I wrote the information.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry to interrupt. Let's keep going.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, yeah. We're up to Hahu Gavra for my father. Hahu Gavra de Zorak Lagita Litvisu. I forgot. I think about 11 lines on the bottom of the page. So there was a person that he threw a get to his
Sorry,
wife.
bottom of what page?
Oh, Ayin Zayin Amud Beis 77b. Hahu Gavra.
Oh, who Gabra?
12 lines on the bottom. It's in the middle of the line. Starts Shaloi Ledaito.
I got it.
Hahu Gavra de Zorak Lagita Litvisu. He threw a get. There was a person who threw a get to his wife. It's very disrespectful, in my opinion. Have a kaiva bechotzer. Also gita nofal bepislo. No, I'm sorry. I think I skipped a little bit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a rock la Gita. Did you say that?
Given the chotzer meshemeres ledaita he miskereshes. So we're up to lema. I'm sorry, lema. About 10 lines above that. Lema. Lema b'hokem miflagi. Let us say that the machlokes is like this: the Mar Sover chotzer b'shum yoda yisraboy. That one opinion, the opinion that says Rav Ula, who says that she has to mamash stand next to her chotzer. So chotzer is her yad, so she has to be next to it. Mar Sover chotzer b'shum shlichas yisraboy. The other opinion is it's like a shliach, so you don't have to be next to it. Maybe that's why Rav Oishia says you don't have to be next to it, because it's a shlichus, it'll be far away from you. The Gemara says, "Loy, no." Everybody agrees that v'nosan biyod, that juxtaposed to biyod, it's her yad. Marsover ki yodo, my yoda b'smucha, v'chatzeda b'smucha. Ula holds that has to be like her hand, just like her hand is. She has to be is obviously next to it. It's attached to her. I'd hope so. So to her chotzer, she's next to it. V'idoch, Rav Oishia holds my yoda b'dvuka, v'chatzeda b'dvuka. Just like her hand is attached, her chotzer has to be attached to her. Obviously not. Just like her hand is based on her knowledge, it's watched on her knowledge. Which would exclude an Eved who's awake, that he has his own das. But a chotzer is fine as long as it's protected, as long as it's like a closed door, as long as it's fine. It's not an open field. It's an open field, it doesn't count. It has to be a chotzer surrounded by a wall. It has to have a gate, so on. Now we're up to Hu Gavra. Hu Gavra, the Zork Legitla Dvisu have a kaima b'chotzer. threw a get to his wife who was in the chutzner. Also, Gittin nofel bepisla. Fell on a piece of wood. The get fell on a piece of wood. Rav Yosef Chazina, we look. Rav Yosef said like this: if the wood was 4 amos by 4 amos, polig l'rishus lenafshe. V'ilei chad rishus.
Is that a makom, David? Is that a makom patur? The piece of wood.
Piece of wood for Shabbos.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so for Shabbos. Now the question is it considered her chutzner?
Oh, we're not.
The question is it considered her chutzner or not? So if it's 4 amos by 4 amos, it's its own rishus. And if not, then it's chad rishus. It's part of her chutzner. So the Gemara asks like this: what are we talking about? If you're going to say it's her chutzner, ki have a dalad amos may have, even if it's 4 amos, it still belongs to her, and she's there. So what's the difference? And the chutzner today, you're saying it's his chutzner, ki lo have 4 amos may have, even if it's not 4 amos. What's the difference? Elo. No, we're talking about that he was makne a certain part in his chutzner to give to get to her. He lent it to her. The ushla lent it to her. Because it fell on a piece of wood, he's not giving her 2 places. If the wood is 4 amos or 4 amos, he's not giving her that. It's less than 4 amos or 4 amos. Like if it's a normally it's probably less. That's a big plank of wood. If it's more a board, it would be a wooden board. So then
It's considered
then it
a
wouldn't be
separate
giving,
entity.
then it would be a separate entity. If it's 4 amos, 4 amos, it means he's not giving that to her. This is only if it's not 10 tvachim tall. But if it's 10 tvachim tall, even if it's not arba amos, he wouldn't give it to her. It's only if it doesn't have its own name. But if it has its own name, then for sure not. He's not giving it to her. He gave her his chutzner. He didn't give her the special board. We're talking about it's his chutzner, and he lent it to her to give her the get. He's not going to give her the board. Even though l'chayda, obviously, he wants her to get the get. Otherwise, why would he lend it to her? So it would make a lot of sense to say he wants her to have whatever it is. I guess not. We're on the next page. We're on Daf Ayin Ches Omid Aleph. 78a, 3 lines in. Afilu ima b'mita. Even if he's with her in bed, but it's his chutzner, it doesn't count. Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't help. Rava said, talking about if it's his bed, if it's her bed, then, and it falls in her bed. We're talking about it's her bed, and the get goes on her bed. It's her bed. Because it's her kalim. The kalov, Rashi says, can your utensils acquire something in someone else's rishus? So machlokes. It seems like Rava holds like the opinion that her bed is mekayna, and we're going to get more into this. Tanya Namiyochi, there was a supporting brayso Rabbi Eliezer b'mita shalei and megureshes mita shalom megureshes. Rabbi Eliezer says in his bed eina megureshes, in her bed megureshes. Uv'mita shalom megureshes kelev shalakeach b'rishus meicheru. Shamas mino, kelev shalakech b'shus meicher kana lekech. So we can learn from here that obviously Rava holds like the opinion that if you have kalim in the property of the meicher of the seller, if the lekech has kalim, the property seller, you're able to acquire if he puts the item in your kli. For example, you're buying fruit, he puts the fruit in your kli, you're kind of even without meshicha, without agba, without pulling it, without lifting it, doesn't matter. You're kind of. The Gemara says, we're talking about where your bed is 10 tvachim tall. It's its own rishus. Once you go into 10 tvachim, it's already in a different rishus. It's considered its own rishus. It's no longer like a kli. It's no longer even a bowl. It's like a whole bed. It's its whole own entity. Perek the Gemara. That's pretty crazy. You're in bed with your wife and then you give her a get. That's pretty insane. Whatever. It's just obviously halachic. We're talking technicalities, but just thinking about the story. The Gemara says, the fact is her bed is on the ground. The legs of her bed is on the ground. So how can you say it's its own rishus? Rashi says, as long as there's 10 tvachim underneath the bed, In other words, you could have a very thick mattress. That's not the way that they didn't have mattresses like that in those days. Beds in those days were just like a bunch of ropes or a board. So basically, at least as far as I know. So as long as it's 10 tvachim off the ground, the husband doesn't mind if the legs are on his property and it's considered her property. The bed is considered her property. If it falls into her lap or into her basket, megureshes. Like the Gemara asks, why is that? It's your kalim are in the rishus or on the property of the meicher, and it's like a machlokes. So is the Mishnah saying like one of these opinions? I don't move it. Yaakov doesn't like it. It wasn't on the ground. Her basket wasn't on the ground. She was holding her basket. It's a different story if she was holding it. We're talking about that her basket was hanging on her. Even if it wasn't in the air, it was attached, it was tied to her, it could be dragging on the ground, that's fine. It's between her legs. In other words, it's on the ground, but between her legs, so therefore it's fine. He sells baskets, so he doesn't mind if her basket is on the ground. Rabbi Yechanan says the husband she has the rights to the place of obviously her lap and her kilsa and her basket. A husband doesn't care if his wife's for her basket and so on and for her lap. So you might we have a supporting brisa if he threw it into her chayk or into her kilso. He doesn't care. So because he doesn't mind. That's a raya for Rabbi Yechanan because it says to include everything similar. What's something similar? If she has like a sort of basket that she eats dates in, that's also something the husband doesn't care. There's no problem with her using that space. So therefore it belongs to her and she's going to be koina, she's going to acquire with such a get. Okay, I think we'll stop here for today. We're up to the Mishnah on Ayin Ches Amud Aleph 78a.
Right near the Mishnah, correct?
We're up to